Hi everyone. Welcome to today's live session. My name is Dr. Ozi, and I'm the founder of my EB2 and IW LLC. We are a consultant firm that offers editorial services to individuals who want to, file for their green card through the EB1A or the EB2 and IW pathways. All right. So, welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, my name is Dr. Ozi, and I'm the founder of a consultant firm that offers editorial services to individuals who want to apply for either the EB1A or the EB2 and IW categories for a US green card. Okay, so we just wanted to hop on here real quick and talk a little bit about filing for a green card through EB1A or EB2 and IW, how long you have to wait, and things like that. I know this session is a little impromptu, so it's okay if you guys are not able to join right away. Hopefully people can catch the replay, okay? So I just want to talk about these things because, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the visa bulletin has been stagnant for a while. It hasn't moved at all, right? And because of that, people are wondering, is it even possible to get my green card this year? How long is it going to take? What do I need to do? What's the next step, right? And so that's why we're going to be talking about these things today. And of course, I'm going to give some time for you to actually ask questions. Unfortunately, we can't go past 1 hour, but hopefully we can wrap this up real quick. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. The first thing I want to talk about is why there's such a backlog when it comes to the visa bulletin, right? And so for those who don't know what this is about, typically when you apply for a green card through the EB1A or the EB2 NIW pathways, right? There are two main steps. The first step is the I-140 application, which is application for alien worker, right? Once you get that approved, the second step then depends on where you are. If you're within the US, you get to adjust your status. If you're outside the US, you have to go through consular processing, right? Now, the first step is, well, it's the same for everyone. So if you're applying from outside the US, you're applying from within the US, the first step remains the same. However, the ability to move to the second step and can complete the process, get your green card, depends on the visa availability of visas, right? And we see that with the visa bulletin, which is released monthly by the US Department of State, right? Okay, so let's say you apply for you did the first application, you turned in your I-140 and you got approved, right? Typically, you would like to conclude the process. Unfortunately, visas are limited, right? Visas are not readily available. So they give out these visas, they allow people to complete the process based on the visa bulletin, right? And based on priority dates. There's a lot of things we're throwing out there, but just hang in there, okay? I'm going to explain as much as possible. So you apply, you get your I-140 approved, and then the next step depends on your priority date. So what is priority date? Priority date is literally your place in line, right? It's like a queue system. So your priority date is the day that USCIS receives your application, your initial I-140 application. This then becomes important because when it comes time to adjust your status or move to the next step, they're wondering, or they ask the question, what is your priority date? Because we're giving these green cards based on when people applied, right? So you look at the visa bulletin, every month it's updated. They tell us there, okay, if your priority date is before this date on the visa bulletin, you can go ahead and apply. Right now, the priority date is stuck, right? It's been that way for a while, right? I don't know if we can pull up that priority date so we can just, get a look, and just see where it is right now. And so people can get, an idea what we're talking about. But really, if you look at go on the Department of State website and you just look at the visa bulletin for, let's say, August 2024, you will see that the priority date is at pretty much 15th of March 2023, right? What that means, and this is for EB2 and IW, what that means is that if your priority dates now is before 15th of March, that's amazing. Thank you so much. So if we look at this graph we're looking at right now, right? I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but if you take a look at this, if your priority date is before the 15th of March 2023, it means that you can now go ahead and turn in your application for adjustment of status. If your priority date is after this, so imagine that everyone who has applied in 2024 and gotten their I-140s approved, well, unfortunately, they're stuck because they're not able to finish the process. Because right now, typically, USCIS is completing the process for people who applied last year. before March 15, 2023. So it's even over a year of wait time for EB2 and IW. So priority date is pretty much fixed. You can't change that. Once you turn in your application, it's locked in. And that date becomes important when it comes to completing the process of adjustment of status. That date is also important for people who are outside the US. So sometimes I have people asking, is it faster to apply from outside the US for EB2 and IW, or does it make sense to do it when I come to the US? Guys, both consular processing, adjustment of status depend on this table, right? Depends on the visa bulletin released by the US Department of State. So everyone is pretty much in the same boat right now. How does this impact your EB2 and IW application? Well, it has several impacts on your application. The first is longer wait times. So in our firm, we offer consulting services. We offer editorial services for individuals who want to apply for this green card. Application of this green card is not just merely filling out immigration forms, right? You have to write a petition, and most people will take our services to do so. But what we're seeing is even with the I-140 approvals, you now have to wait a little longer to complete the process. Not only that, it affects your plans, right? A lot of people have plans to change jobs. We talk to people all day, every day. People are saying, hey, I can't wait to change my job, get my green card, change my job, still in the same industry, but get a better job, So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to getting a better job, making plans for the future, travel. These are some of the things that are impacted due to the wait times and delays that, are caused by this longer wait for your green card, right? And one of the things that people also ask us a lot is, so if the EB2 and IW process is kind of taking longer, does it make sense to apply for premium processing, right? So let's talk about that, because we get that question a lot. So what does premium processing do, right? Premium processing basically is an optional service that allows you to get a faster response from USCIS when it comes to your I-140 process. So that premium processing application is not going to expedite the entire green card application process. Remember, I said it's a two-step process. So you have the I-140 application, and then you have the adjustment of status or consular processing process, right? What happens with premium processing is that you get a response in 45 days or less if it's for EB2 and IW. It's for EB1A, you get a response in 15 days or less for the first step, the I-140 step, right? And then after that, you join the queue of individuals who are waiting for either the adjustment of status or the consular processing based off of if you're applying from within the US or outside the US, right? So premium processing only expedites the first step. And why is this important? This is for individuals like myself who don't like to wait, right? I just want to know, hey, am I getting this thing or not? Is my I-140 approved or not? I just want to have that peace of mind in knowing that my I-140 has been approved. If that is you, then go ahead and get the premium processing for EB2 and IW, right? But if you're an individual who feels like, hey, gosh, I have a lot of time, I'm very patient, I can wait this thing out, my immigration status is pretty stable right now, no rush, of course, So I tend to think that it's a personal decision for most people as to, do you have the funds available? Do you have the patience? Can you wait? Now, how long is it going to take if you don't expedite the process? I think we had a post earlier that says that showed the trend. On average, it takes about 6 months. If you don't expedite the process, it might take up to 6 months before you actually get a response, right? And so for EB2 and IW, I think it's a dicey one. I feel like if you have the funds for it and you feel like, I just want to know, then yeah, go ahead with expediting. But you just have to know that it does not expedite the entire process. It only expedites the first one, I-140 approval, okay? Aside from that, let's talk about expediting EB1. Does that make sense? So can we pull up the EB1, the priority date for EB1? So if you look at the priority date for EB1, you see that it's current, right? What does current mean? Current means if you applied for this EB1 application, you put in your I-140 today, you get approved today, right? Work with me here. You get approved today. They have a visa available for you immediately, right? So EB1 always gets priority when it comes to this type of green card, right? Because they are at the top of the food chain. There are people who are like doing amazing things. We want these people ASAP. They have these visas available for them. Countries like China, India, Mexico, well, for EB1, China and India mostly, they have a date attached to EB1, but it's not too far back, right? So, for example, for China, the date right there is 1st of November 2022. It means it's about maybe a 2-year wait time if you get approved in under the EB1 and you're from China. And then from India, it's 1st of February 2022. So you see that EB1 is generally faster when it comes to completing the process. You can even turn in everything today. So you decide, oh, I'm going to apply for EB1, and I live within the US. Guess what? I'm going to turn in my I-140 application. I'm going to turn in my premium processing application. And then I'm going to apply for everything else. Adjustment of status. I want an extra EAD card. I want to be able to travel outside the US. Hey, if you have the money and you're confident, hey, put all of those things in, right? If not, people will just say, okay, I'm going to get my I-140 approval, and then I'm going to do the rest of it, right? Let me make sure that you guys can hear me, because I've been talking a lot and I just want to make sure that I don't go on and no one can hear me. So let's see. All right, people are asking questions. It means that people can hear me. So awesome. So, okay, guys, just hang on with me 1 second. I'll talk to this stuff and then I'll promise to answer most of your questions, okay? Make sure that we have enough time. All right, so what are your options? So we have a lot of clients who worked with us this year who went ahead and got the I-140s approved. I was so happy for them, honestly. Like, nothing gives me more joy than working with people and they get approved. It just is, it gives so much joy to both my clients and myself. I feel like we're doing work that's impactful, amazing. And then we start to wait. I tell them, okay, we're going to look at the visa bulletin. If your priority date is before this date on the visa bulletin, we're going to go ahead and finish up the process. But this thing has been on the same date, literally for months, right? So the first thing I'm going to say, guys, is I'm going to encourage a lot of you, right, to take action. Because some of you I had conversations with, and at that time they were like, oh, I want to apply for EB1, but I'm just going to wait on this EB2. It may be time to take action. If you're qualified for EB1, this may be the time to go ahead, right? Immigration is a little bit unpredictable. I feel like if you have what it takes to do EB1A, to apply for EB1A, guys, let's do it, right? Stop taking notes. You've taken enough notes. January, this is August, right? Please, if you're qualified for EB1A, go ahead and bet on yourself, right? Do it. Get your application in, join the line, join the queue, right? So that you can have the prospect of even getting this thing done this year, right? Because right now it's taking so long for EB2 and IW, right? So if you have the ability to switch to EB1A, guys, go for it. The second thing I'm going to say is it's very important, especially if you're within the US, to maintain your non-immigrant status. So whether it be F1, H1B, O1 visa, whatever it is that you're on in the US, legal status, it's important that you maintain that, right? Why is this important? Imagine that you have to wait a whole year before you can adjust your status. What then happens is that if you're on a visa that is expiring, if that expires, there's no status to adjust, right? You're on no status. So having these conversations helps with planning, future planning. It helps you figure out, okay, what are the next steps? What do I have to do? I have to put plan B in play. I have to put plan C in play in order to make sure that I am in status when my priority date becomes current and allows me to adjust status, right? So those are very important things that we have to keep in mind. Is it's going to take a lot of patience. Immigration is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And eventually, you have to be in status. Another thing is, for individuals who cannot maintain that status, they've tried everything they can't maintain that status, there's the option of consular processing, right? So you can actually leave the US, go back to your home country, take a vacation, right? And wait it out, right? That would help with ensuring that you're not on a timeline. There's no stopwatch. You're just, and in your home country, you're doing this 1 year there. And then when your priority date becomes current, guess what? You're switching and saying, hey, I'm outside the US, I'm going to go through consular processing. Because we know that the visa bulletin is affecting both consular and adjustment of status. I know I'm talking to the choir here because a lot of people, once they come to the US, they've come. They don't want to go out of the US. I've had this conversation with a lot of people. But we just it has to be said that if push comes to shove and you feel like there's no other way for me to do this stuff to maintain my status, hey guys, it's okay if you go to your home country and do consular processing, right? All right, let's see. Is there a question here? Okay, yeah. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We're going to answer these questions as we go along, right? Finally, I have clients who have worked with individuals who we've worked with who have gone ahead to, let's say they're on F1 status. If you get approved, you're a PhD student, still doing your PhD, go ahead and finish your PhD program. Go ahead and do your OPT. If you have the option for OPT, definitely put it in. A lot of people say, oh, I'm doing EB2, I don't need to put OPT in. No, you do. You have to use all the options available to you. Even if you're applying for EB2, you have a job offer, you don't go there and tell them that, oh, I've applied for EB2 or EB1, I don't need sponsorship, right? Always negotiate immigration whenever you have an opportunity to do so. Because again, immigration is unpredictable. We want to make sure that you have as many options as possible. You're able to get your green card and move on with the process. I love these routes because these are merit-based routes, right? It's made to reward the hard work that you're doing in the US. We just want to make sure that you're here, you're in status, and when that time comes, you can put in that application. Okay. All right. So what are the options while you're waiting? We talked about consular processing. We talked about switching to non-immigrant visa types. So you're expiring. We talked about extending your stay if you can. We talked about the fact that you're not tied to the US. You can actually leave and do consular processing, right? And we said that it's going to take a lot of patience. Most importantly, if you're qualified for EB1, go ahead and do that, right? I guess I'll come back and talk about EB1 a little bit more later, or even organize. I think we should organize like a Zoom session, just talk about EB1. However, one thing I want to say about EB1 is this. A lot of times we get individuals who are coming rushing to the EB1 route because EB2 is taking so much time, right? And so they're coming to EB1 with credentials for EB2, right? While some individuals may be able to use the same credentials for EB1 and EB2, just keep in mind that EB1 requires a little bit more, right? We're looking for people who are top in their fields, people who are innovators, people who are doing stuff, leading teams that do amazing stuff, people who are invited as guest speakers at conferences, right? So you have to think about that, right? Are you the subject matter expert? So a lot of time people are running from EB2 because it's taking so much time and they're coming to EB1. Keep in mind that EB1 requires a little bit more. The most important thing that you can do is plan, right? So if EB1 is with the route that I want to go with, that's fine. What am I going to do? What is it going to take for me to get that green card through EB1? And I still do this a lot, right? I was talking to someone earlier today and I realized that he had gone to this conference that I really want to speak at, right? I went ahead, I told him, say, I'm interested in speaking at that conference. If you can talk to me about how to get in as a speaker, I would really appreciate that. Those are the kind of things that you need to do if you want to apply for EB1, because EB1 is looking for people who stand out. So you're going to seek those opportunities to stand out. You're going to reach out to people who are looking for subject matter experts. You're going to write those review articles, those papers, or collaborate with people who are writing those papers. You're going to make sure that you get evidence for most of these leading things that you're doing. You're going to take up leadership roles, right? A lot of us run away from leadership roles. Oh, they're looking for people to do this. It's not paid, it's volunteer, but you're going to be a leader anyway, right? When you're applying for EB1, it requires a lot more. You have to show with evidence that you're the right person for this stuff. So I would say that if you want to apply for EB1 and you have the time, a consultation will do you good. A consultation will help you figure out, am I ready right now? Or what can I do? Specifically, what can I do to make my case look a lot better? All right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about those of you who are going to apply through EB1. We have so many posts on our page talking about the requirements for EB1. Please go ahead and look at those things. Of course, I'm going to come back on Instagram Live to talk a lot about these things. Or even have Zoom sessions to talk about these things again. However, our company, our consultancy agency is moving on to EB1. We've worked with so many people on that. A handful of people in EB1, and then we have experience in running EB1 petitions as well, so we can help when it comes to EB1. Okay, so long-term strategies while you're waiting. So a lot of people have gotten I-140s approved. What can they do while they wait? The very best thing you can do is to work on your career, right? Work on making improving on those skills. The US is going to give you a green card. They're not going to give you a job, right? When I realized this, when I got my green card, and by the way, I got my green card through one of these pathways, right? When I got my green card, I thought all my problems would be solved in this amazing land. No, you're still going to have to figure out your career, guys. So this is a great time to kind of figure out, okay, my career goals, my financial goals. Money is important for this process. Whether you're applying by yourself or you're getting help with, editorial services, or you're using a lawyer, finance is involved, right? We want to make sure that you figure out your career, you're making those connections, because at the end of the day, you're still going to need to figure out how to make money in America, okay, through your career. So those are the things I want to talk to you about. It's important to stay informed. Through our platform, we try to put out, news about things that are happening that are related to either EB1A or EB2 and IW. We try to put out this information, but you can also look on USCIS page to see when there are updates. There's a page I go to a lot. It's called USCIS News, right? I'll go to that page so much, right? Because I want to figure out what's happening. Is there news out there? When is this thing going to move? I personally think that things may move in October because that's the start of a new fiscal year, right? So every year, USCIS has a set number of green cards available for this process. And I feel like when there's a new fiscal year, that's the most likely the chance when things are going to be bumped up. But it's a feeling. I don't know this, right? So because I don't know this, and because immigration can be unpredictable, it's also tied to a lot of different things. I would say for those of us who are really qualified for EB1A, let's do it, right? Let's do it. If you don't think you're qualified, hey, schedule a consultation, talk about how you can get qualified, right? One of the things that we do is that we've talked to a whole lot of people in different fields. Sometimes we connect people and say, hey, there's someone else that's doing the similar thing with you. Maybe you guys can partner and get the paper out, or maybe you guys can do this, do that, right? That's the benefit of talking to people about stuff. Don't wait too long because like we know, this takes time. The last thing I'm going to say before we take the questions is, did I lose that? Oh, I think I lost my train of thoughts. Well, let's take questions because that may come back. But for now, I think those are things I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, I remember the last thing I was going to say. The last thing I was going to say is, this is to individuals who wait so long to do stuff. So you want to apply for EB2, you've been following us for 2 years, and you're now trying to figure out when is the right time to do it. Guys, there's a wait for EB2. So if you're going to apply for EB2, it's time to put in that application, right? You've been sitting on this for 2 years, put it in, right? Make sure you get a response on your EB2 and IW application, and then we can take it from there. Okay. So again, we talked about premium processing. Hey, premium processing depends on, do you have the funds for it? Is it going to help your application? It's fantastic for EB1A. For EB2 and IW, honestly, right now, I just think it's for people who just want to know, did I get approved or not? Get that definite answer, right? And some people use that to make long-term decisions like, okay, am I going to travel? Am I going to move back? Am I going to apply for this other job? Sometimes that helps, but it's just a case-by-case basis. All right. You want me to take the questions on my phone, or you want to put it up? All right, so let's take the questions. All right, the first one is, my priority date is July 2022. 2022 July. So they're stuck in, oh, okay. Stop in 2023. July 2022? And documentary qualified on January 2024. And still I have not received a consul interview date. I'm from Ecuador. Okay. So your priority date, is this for EB2 and IW, or is this for EB1? Because it seems like your priority date is current, right? So you the National Visa Center is supposed to reach out to you to tell you the things that you need to do for your consular processing. So there's a whole process. You're supposed to do some medical, go on their website, set up an account, pay for your DS-260, do a lot of medical checks, add your dependents as well, and then that consulate, that they will reach out to you to schedule that appointment for an interview date. So if you haven't heard from them, reach out to the information you had on your approval, I-140 approval, and get a response on that. But if you've done every other thing and you're just waiting for them to call you for a date, it sounds like you may have to be patient. But guys, don't get tired of reaching out to USCIS. Even if you call them today and they say, oh, we're working on it, blah, 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 and you feel like you want to call them tomorrow, go ahead and call them. All right. Don't get tired of reaching out to them. You're not disturbing them. You want to get a response on your case. I was talking to someone earlier today, and she was telling me that, she had done this stuff for about a year and didn't hear back. And then she worked with a lawyer and called her lawyer, lawyer, what's going on? Lawyer calls USCIS, blah, 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 blah. Turns out they had denied the case, but nobody told them. Right. So if she was telling me, I wish I had reached out to them a lot earlier. So if you haven't heard from USCIS, guys, reach out to them. There's no law that says you can't reach out to them. Okay. So I think for your case, if you have done everything, there's some steps. There's the medical step. There is the filling out the immigration forms, paying for certain things. If you've done all those things leading up to that and you're just waiting for a date, then you might just have to wait. But it seems like your priority date is current, especially from the country that you're from. All right. Any other questions? If I apply for EB2 in the UK and get approved, but move to the UK, but I guess US, but move to the US with B1, B2, can I still go ahead from the US? It's a tricky question. Okay, let's try to address this. You get approved I-140. It's not an immigration benefit, so you can't come to the US based on that I approved I-140, but you're here visiting. The problem with visiting visas are that they are, there's a limitation, there's a time crunch on those visiting visas, right? Right now, you can't stay for the adjustment of the status because the priority date is still not current, right? So if you overstay your visa, you then run into the risk of, because you're going to go before USCIS again, right? If you overstay on your B1, B2, it could affect your approved I-140 when it's time to adjust status. So make sure that you don't overstay on the visa that you do have, right? So we're saying that the wait time right now is over a year. You're not going to be over here, here over a year waiting on B1, B2. You're going to run out of status. So it's okay to leave, come back. If you're outside the US when it becomes current, you can do consular processing. If you're in the US, you can then adjust status. The only other way to do it is if you came in through B1, B2, but eventually you went on a different non-immigrant status, like F1, for instance, student visa. Maybe you got a job, H1B, and you're now in the US on a legal non-immigrant visa. Then it makes sense to wait for adjustment of status. But my message to you is don't risk falling out of status or overusing or breaching the contracts or the terms of your visiting visa, because it would affect the next step. And we don't want to do that because you've passed the greatest hurdle. The greatest hurdle is just getting the I-140 approved, right? Your priority date will come. And when that comes, you want to make sure you don't have anything working against you. Okay, what else can we talk about? Can someone with a valid visa travel out of the US when I-140 is approved but hasn't adjusted status? Absolutely. I-140 is not immigrant status, right? You can move as freely as possible. There are people who are Indians who have gotten the I-140s approved for eons, decades, right? They're waiting on adjustment of status. They still travel. As long as you have a valid travel document, you can travel. Now, once you start adjusting your status, once you put in that application to adjust your status, make sure that you also turn in the application for advanced parole, right? A travel document. Because if you travel when you're adjusting your status without an approved advanced parole document, you might not be allowed to come back in. Your application may just be thrown out because this one doesn't need it. All right. All right. Another question. Let's see. If I have applied for EB2 and I'm waiting for the second phase, can I apply for EB1? Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. It's like the best analogy I can give is you see two amazing, juicy job offers, right? One is for director, one is for staff. And you're like, I'm overqualified for staff. I'm going to apply for staff. Well, go ahead and do so. But if you're going to apply for directorship, you can apply as well. It doesn't deter anything, right? These are two independent applications. Two different officers will look at them. Guess what? If you can be approved for both, right? People have done EB2 and IW. They got approved. The wait is too long. They put in EB1 and they get approved with EB1. Guess what? You only need one green card. So they go head on with the EB1, get their green cards, and that's it, right? The only thing that is affected here is that you're spending more money, right? You're going to pay 2 application fees. If you want to expedite both of them, well, there's that as well, right? So, but you're free to apply for both of them. All right. Is there another question? Okay. Is it possible for DACA recipients to apply for EB2 and IW if they have a legal entrance through advanced parole? So whether you're DACA, no DACA, right? You can apply for EB2 and IW. Remember, people are applying from outside the US. Outside the US means they've never been to the US before. They have no status in the US, but they are qualified. They can apply, right? What then happens after their I-140 is approved will depend on what your case really is. I'm not really familiar with the intricacies of DACA or like how it works, if that is considered an immigrant status, right? So if you have special cases like that, I would say definitely talk to legal counsel to make sure that you're able to complete the process. But when it comes to eligibility, definitely you're eligible to apply. How the adjustment of status will happen, whether it will be through adjustment of status or consular processing, you may have to talk to a legal professional about that. The reason is because, especially when we work with individuals who are on asylum process, the asylum application itself doesn't confer a legal status in the US. It's not a legal status, right? You just applied for asylum. So a lot of people are waiting on that application. And based on that, they've applied for other things. Okay, they've got an EAD card, for instance, right? Now they've heard about EB2 and they apply for EB2. They get the I-140s approved. But then when it comes to adjusting status, USCIS says, well, the asylum status is not a legal status. So typically what some individuals have done is that they will then apply for a travel document and go to a third country. because you don't want to go to the country where you said your life was in danger, right? So they'll apply for a travel document and then go to a third country like say Canada or outside the US, and then finish the process to consular processing. I highly suggest that when the process is not clear cut, when it's like there are other factors with your case, I highly suggest that you talk to legal counsel because they will tell you exactly what to do. Talk to them before you even turn in that application. Okay. All right. Let's see. Where can I get the current bulletin? Okay, just go on Google Visa Bulletin Department of State, right? You see that they even give you the Visa Bulletin for the month ahead. So right now we already know what's going to happen in September, and that's why I put up this live session because it's not moving. I just wanted to make sure that individuals are well aware of this and what the options are moving forward. All right. Can I apply for EB1 while in the US? Yes, you can apply for EB1 from anywhere in the world. The amazing thing is that these programs were put in place because the US wanted to attract the best. They want the best talent from all over the world, right? The reason why India and China have such a backlog is that we already have amazing people here, so many amazing people here for using those platforms, right? And so they're trying to, figure it out, make sure that we don't have too many people from one place. But anyway, feel free to apply for EB2 and IW or EB1A from anywhere in the world, whether you're in the US or outside the US. Okay. All right. Another question is it compulsory to add a business plan in your EB2 and IW application? No, it's not compulsory. Not everyone needs a business plan. We talked about this a long time ago, but I guess the one drawback I have about Instagram, maybe I should talk to Mark about this. The thing I don't really like about Instagram is that you cannot search for topics on Instagram. Like, let's say you had an Instagram page and you put out all this information, because we have amazing information on our page, but it's too far back and people can't just keep scrolling to find it. So what we're doing is we're talking about these things all over again because we want you to have access, right? The question you asked about business plans, if your endeavor, right? Endeavor means what you plan to do in the US. If your endeavor is entrepreneurial, you're coming to do something that involves setting up a business, then you need a business plan, right? You need to be able to tell them how. Who's going to pay for this? Where the finance is going to come from? What is the structure of the business? Is it going to make money? Do you need money to set it up? Things like that, right? So if you're proposing to start a business in the US, adding a business plan will strengthen your application. But if you're like me, you're a scientist, you're going to work on doing innovative things that are going to help cure diseases or things like that, then you don't necessarily need a business plan. So not everybody needs a business plan, but I strongly suggest that individuals who are going to propose things that are entrepreneurial need to include a business plan to strengthen their cases, because the business plan says how are you going to do this? Another thing I'm going to say is, if you've never done business before, never had a business, you're not running any business, but this is just an idea in your head, it's a lot harder to get approved with those kind of endeavors, because one of the things that they look at is they look to see, okay, how successful have you been in this line that you're going to say that you're going to do in the US, right? Business is not easy, right? Even though you have an amazing idea and you know how to do it, there's the business of business, right? So that's why you see a lot of startups and people kind of after 5 years, they just shut down, because running a business takes other skills outside of what the business is about. So it helps if you have actually had a business in the past, because that tells people, okay, this is feasible, this can be done. If you haven't had a business at all in the past, it helps if you have people who are going to partner with you who have that expertise, right? So for example, you haven't done a business, you have this idea to start up this app that can help people figure out when it's time to get married. It's an idea. I'm just throwing this out there, right? And you haven't done business in the past, but you're partnering with a software engineer who has created several apps like that in the past. You have investors, you have people that have shown interest, right? And then there's a big need. You can look at the case studies and say, hey, there's a big need for this thing in the US. You can sell that idea. But if you're coming to say, okay, I'm going to start this thing from scratch, I've never done it before, but I have this amazing idea and I have an MBA, it may not fly. So just know that business plans are for entrepreneurs mostly. All right, let's see another one. Hi, Ozzy. Question about submitting I-140 and supporting documents. Do you submit them same time or differently? That's a great question. First, a lot of people ask me, can I submit online? Right now, for EB2 and IW, no, right? You can't submit online. The second thing is submitting supporting documents. Everything has to go together. right? You can't submit one today. USCIS does not have a special cupboard for you where they're keeping all your stuff. So you just keep bringing things. Oh, I'll submit my West evaluation today, my degree certification tomorrow. No, they want to see everything at the same time, including recommendation letters. So when your recommenders are writing those letters, or when you're giving them the drafts or whatnot, they give you back those signed letters. It goes as part of your application, right? Actually, I think that's amazing because then you can see what people are writing about you. But yeah, everything goes in a single package to USCIS. Honestly, guys, people are sending in amazing application these days. You just want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. But yeah, send everything at the same time. Okay. We have a few more questions. Do we have a few more questions? Okay. Any more questions? Okay. If a person has gotten approval this August, what from outside? Okay, well, how long will it take to get their green card? Oh, this is the magic. I'm guessing that you're asking, I just got approved 1st of August. When am I actually going to get this green card? If it's through EB2 and IW, start to finish, it can take between 1.5 to 2 years, just looking at what's happening right now, right? So EB2 and IW is not one of those things where you apply today, tomorrow you buy your ticket, you're flying to the US. No, it's going to take a while. So congratulations that you got approved. That is the most, amazing step. To me, I feel like that's the greatest hurdle, because I don't personally know anyone who has been, denied at the adjustment of status phase. But it's going to take a while. And so what you have to do is monitor the visa bulletin, make sure that you're looking at the final action dates. For the employment-based type green cards, they're asking us to look at the final action date to determine when we can apply. So you look at the final action date. If your priority date is before the date that you find on there, then you can apply for the next step. But if it's not before that date, then you have to wait a little bit longer, right? So I think it's between 1.5 to 2 years just before you actually make that move. But then in the meantime, you can travel to wherever you want to go to, but just to come to the US to get your green card will take that long. All right. Do you have any more questions? If you have an approved I-140 and also have an H1B from my office, can my spouse work? Okay. We did have someone with this type of situation in the past, right? So if you have the H1B, your spouse is able to work with an approved I-140. I believe so. So you can apply for an EAD card for your spouse based on that approved I-140 that you have, right? Make sure you double check that, but I believe that that's the case with the spouses of H1B holders. So you can definitely apply for that. Okay, but reach out to us if you have any more confusion, or you want to tell us how that went. We'll be very happy to hear about that, right? One thing I'm going to say is, if you're out there, you've been approved your EB1A, or if your EB2 and IW has been approved, and you want to tell people about it, you want to encourage the community, tell people how you did it. We have a podcast. It's called the EB2 and IW podcast, where we invite individuals who have been approved to tell us how they did it, right? Most of the people we have on there are people we worked with, but we're also open to inviting people who did it themselves, or even people who did it through their lawyer, right? Whether you paid for it through your lawyer, or you did it yourself, or hey, you are the amazing person here, right? The underlying person here is you. All right. Any more applications? Okay. Question. Okay. Hi. You're doing a wonderful work. Thank you. I appreciate that. You see, we put up a lot of information, but not everyone says thank you. But whenever we get a thank you, it feels good. Thank you so much for appreciating the work. Okay, this is for a friend. Can you apply even with tourist visa right now? You can apply with no visa, right? Remember, you don't have to be in the US to apply. You could have been in Nigeria. We have clients who have applied from Nigeria, from Oka, from the East, from Lagos, from Abuja, right? They've applied and they've gotten their green card. So it really doesn't, your tourist visa doesn't have anything to do with this, right? Now, where I would be careful is when it comes to people applying from outside the US, you have to be strategic about that application. I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you want to apply you want to go to school in the US as an F1 student, right? But then you also heard about EB2. He said, let me try EB2 as well. Which one will you apply for first? Logically, it will be the F1, right? Because when you go for your F1 interview, they have to make sure that you can come back to Nigeria. They want to see, I don't know how I assumed you were Nigerian, but They want to make sure that you can return to your home country after studying, right? If you have previously put in an immigrant petition for an immigrant visa in the US, it shows that you plan to go to the US and stay there. So how you apply depends on what your plans really are, but you can apply from anywhere in the world. You know, let's say you want to go to the US, you want to apply for your tourist B1, B2 visa, but you also want to apply for EB2 and IW. Which one are you going to put in the application first? I would suggest that you get a tourist visa first, because the tourist visa, when they're interviewing you, they want to make sure that you plan to go back to your country, right? But if you have put in an EB2 and IW application and then you try to do the tourist visa afterwards, it looks as if this person is not going to come back, right? So those are the only things that I would say you need to think about when you're applying for EB2 and IW, whether you're in the US or outside the US, right? Now, remember, when you come into the US on a visa type, let's say B1, B2, there is that, I believe it's a 90-day rule where you can't just come into the US and tomorrow apply for another immigrant benefit, right? Because it looks like you try to trick the system, right? It looks like you just wanted to be here. So make sure that you're looking at, when I come into the US, I have to be here for a certain number of days before I can try to change my my status in the US, right? Because if you try to do it too soon, it looks like you're trying to game the system. So these are things that you want to make sure that you're looking out for. You're not breaking any rules. You're making sure that when you turn in your application, everything looks good. All right. Now I have F1 status. Amazing. I want to change to EB2 and IW. Can I go to Mexico? Oh, no. He says I want to change to E2. Can I go to Mexico and change to get visa? Okay. I hope I'm understanding this question. You have F1, but you want to change to EB2. Is that what you're saying? Or you want to change, or you want to update your visa? I may have to take this call. I have a call coming in from my kid's school. I may have to take that one. Okay. So one of the things that you want to make sure is that I'm not sure I understand the question, okay? But if you're trying to change to EB2 and IW, then you don't need to go anywhere if it's EB2 and IW, right? If it's E2 visa, that's not the area of our expertise, but I want to make sure that we give you the right answer. So if you can send us a more detailed message in our inbox, tell us exactly what needs to be done, then we can talk about that. It looks like I might have to go a little bit early because I have an emergency. Do we have an emergency or no? No? Okay. All right. So, guys, I promised you to 4 o'clock. I just want to make sure that I can do it before I have to go. All right. Okay. Documentary. I am documentary complete. Okay, I get it. But still waiting consular processing interview in my home country. Can I change the consular location to another country where I am now? Yes, I believe you can. But you have to send that message. There's a number that you can reach out to on documentation that came to you from the National Visa Center. We've had people change from adjustment of status to consular processing. Reach out to them and tell them about this. And I'm sure they should be able to do that in your own case. If not, you may just have to travel to your home country. But if not, reach out to that number and see if you can get that sorted. Okay. Do we have any more? Let's see. Okay, guys, I'm going to take a couple more questions and I'm going to call it a day because I need to go to my daughter's school to make sure everything is fine there. But let me answer 2 more questions and then we will go. But we will come back with another Instagram live to just talk about some of these things that are happening with USCIS and the news and all whatnot. And then we'll also organize platforms and forums where we can talk more about these things, right? So Zoom sessions, things like that, we'll put that out there. If you need to talk to us about your application, you can reach out to us. You can schedule consultations and make sure that we can actually talk to you about this process and put you through. Okay. All right. So 2 more questions. Hello, ma'am. My husband has had his NIW approved, but we are waiting for a date to go for the interview. It's been almost 4 months. Oh, my dear. Waiting on this, requires a lot of patience. The EB2 and IW process, EB1 process, applying for a green card in general is not a sprint. It takes time, right? Just getting the I-140 approved, for instance, taking about 6 months, right? Let me see how long it's even taking because we looked at that earlier, just so I can give you a little bit of an idea of how long it is taking for adjustment of status. Let's see if we have that information for you. I believe we put it out a while back. Okay, so right now adjustment of status is taking about 6 months. So you just been 4 months, so 6.2. So you may have to wait a little bit more, but on average, just looking at the data from October 1st, 2023 to May 23rd or May 31st, 2024, and looking at the average, it's taking about 6 months for adjustment of status. So hang in there. I don't think you can expedite that particular process. You may just have to wait a little bit longer for that one. Okay, last question. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us on this Instagram Live. I'll answer this question, and then I have to go make sure everything is okay. But thanks for the session. I'm a PhD student with an F1 visa. How soon can I apply for EB2 and IW? What resources, documents should I gather before I apply? So that's a great question. So you're in a PhD program. It means that you haven't completed the program, right? So for EB2 and IW, there's a requirement for advanced degree. Even though it's a bachelor's degree, I highly request or highly suggest that you apply with at least a master's degree, right? Because of the fact that there's so many people trying to apply, so many people trying to get this green card. We want to make sure your application is competitive enough, right? So it now depends on what degree you have before you go into the PhD program, right? And how much experience you have with that degree. Because if you're in the PhD program, if you're like me, I went into a PhD program with just a bachelor's degree, right? So if I had applied as a student, I would be applying on the basis of my completed degree, which is my bachelor's degree. I was also one of those people who didn't really work a lot. I was always in school, right? I did the bachelor's and the PhD, So if I had applied while I was in school, I wouldn't have had enough experience to, put in that kind of application. So these are the kind of things that you think about. But let's say you have a master's degree, you're in the PhD program, I would say you can apply if your application looks strong. You ask yourself, am I going to be stronger when I finish this PhD degree because I've already met the requirement of advanced degree? All I have to show now is that I'm proposing something that is in the interest of the US and that I have all the experience and skills and whatnot to be able to drive that, right? Do I have certifications in this field? Am I a active member of professional societies in this field? Do I have a license if it's applicable? Do I have publications if I'm a researcher? Are people citing my work? Am I a subject matter expert? Am I doing relevant volunteering? For all of these things I've listed, you have to have evidence for those things, right? And so you want to make sure that in addition to having the degree, the requisite degree, that you also have skills and things that make you stand out, because they can't give this green card to everybody with a degree, right? As a matter of fact, sometimes we see people who have fantastic profiles who apply and don't get it, right? So you want to make sure that you apply when your application will be the strongest. Sometimes you have to finish that degree. Other times, if you feel like it's strong right now, you can go for it. I would suggest that you consult with someone who knows about the process. You can do it through us, and we can look at the breadth of your entire profile and kind of give you targeted advice based off of what you have actually done. I think that would be really, really helpful for you. All right, guys. So unfortunately, I have to cut this short, but I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you're planning to apply for EB2 and IW, or if you've applied, you've gotten approved, what can you do while you wait? I say work on your career. Make sure you put that visible, always check on the visa bulletin. Make sure that you maintain your non-immigrant status if you're in the US. And of course, if you're qualified for EB1, put that in, all right? And then I will try to come your way again next week with a little bit more updates. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about EB1 and how to strengthen your cases. We can give maybe specific case scenarios where people have actually gotten approved on EB1 and how they did it. But for now, some of the things that that we've worked with are doing to maintain their non-immigrant status is that if they're in school, they're making sure that they get that OPT. Some of them are going back to more programs. I'm not really a fan of that because that's just a lot of money. I will say that if you're qualified, do the EB1, or you can get on another non-immigrant status if you can. All right, it doesn't make sense to get 4 master's degrees just because you're trying to keep your non-immigrant status going. Okay, all right, so thank you so much for joining today, and we'll make sure we have this replay on there for those who missed it. But until we see you again on the next one, have an amazing weekend and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.